What it is, YouTube people, my name is Nate, and today we'll be talking about how this Call of Duty Black Ops 3 beta has the power to propel Call of Duty on a metaphorical set of steroids into a glorious future, surpassing even the great Modern Warfare 3 in sales, or how this Black Ops 3 beta could kill the franchise and be the biggest mistake Call of Duty and Activision have ever made, and have this risk pay off in a very fatal way. And this beta, which was leaked out recently via poster on GameStop, is a very, very big risk. I cannot stress this enough. This is something Call of Duty has never done since World at War, and it has very fatal consequences if this risk doesn't pay off. But if it does, the enormous amount of publicity that this game could get would be life-saving. So recently, and as of lately, Call of Duty has been fighting tooth and nail to withhold its spot and stay as the top FPS dominator on the market in human history, while it's competing with Battlefield and Halo, and to a lesser extent Destiny, in this desperate attempt to try and stay on top. Call of Duty has to try new things, and this beta is one of those new things. Now, in order to understand this beta, we have to take a look at previous quote-unquote game betas. And the first thing you notice when you look upon these quote-unquote game betas, at least for AAA FPS titles, you can tell they are not exactly betas. For instance, the Battlefield 3, I'm doing air quotes right now with my fingertips, beta was a desperate attempt to gain publicity. Now, granted, it paid off massively. Now, if you remember when Battlefield 3 first came out, if you were around back then, that was a pretty fun time. It was when Call of Duty was virtually uncontested on the market around the time Black Ops 1 was released. And the Battlefield 3 beta, its purpose was to be basically free to anyone who wants to play it and try and attract some of the Call of Duty players. It wasn't really acting to do anything. Now, of course, occasionally patch minor bugs and glitches, but other than that, the purpose of the beta was just to try and entice people to play the game and buy the game when it comes out, so that they might be able to compete with bigger FPS titles like Halo and Call of Duty, and oh boy, did those betas pay off. Later, if you saw the Titanfall beta, another free beta, did the exact same thing that the Battlefield 3 beta did, and the Battlefield 4 after that. However, the one thing that does stand out in this trend is the Battlefield Hardline beta. Yes, I'm using a lot of EA examples right now. But if you remember the Battlefield Hardline beta, the first time, it was pretty poorly received by the public. It lasted, I think, a week or two, and not a lot of people were satisfied with the product that they were given and with the product that they were promised. A lot of people were very disappointed in how the game was marketed, for instance, as well as how the game played. The game was marketed like, oh, this is going to be just as action-packed as Battlefield 4, and we're taking it just as seriously. But in all actuality, it wasn't taken just as seriously. And it should be taken with the same seriousness of a Jim Carrey movie. Imagine combining a die-hard seriousness of a trailer with Dumb and Dumber 2. It doesn't make any sense. And that's one of the flaws Battlefield Hardline made. But, oh my god, I'm digressing way too big. Anyways, my point is the Battlefield Hardline beta failed miserably. And the reason why this is an exception to anything else is because it forced the developer to do something that Call of Duty will not have the freedom to do should their beta fail, and that is delay the game. Now, Battlefield had that luxury, and luckily it saved Hardline from what could have been an imminent and utter disaster that killed the entire Battlefield franchise. But luckily, they were smart, they managed to delay the game, and they managed to restore some consumer confidence when the game released in, I believe, March of 2015, which I've played a little bit of it. I haven't played a lot, but from what I can tell, I'm very satisfied. Now, Call of Duty, however, doesn't have that luxury. If this beta flops, what's going to happen? If everyone says, oh, this game sucks, don't buy it, and no one buys it, what does that mean for Call of Duty? Call of Duty is an annualized franchise. Call of Duty cannot afford to be delayed. There is a new Call of Duty game being made every year by a different studio. Activision, Sledgehammer, and Treyarch all make different games at different times of the year. And if a Call of Duty game is delayed, let's just say the Black Ops 3 the Black Ops 3 beta flops miserably, and they are forced to delay the game, what happens? They delay it 3 months into March. Well, wait, let me do the math on that. The game releases November 6th. They delay the game 3 months. Okay, it releases in February 6th, right? Let's just pretend that happens. What does that mean? What does that mean? The game's annualized. You can't do that. It does. Well, no, you can do that, I suppose. But what does that mean for the franchise? You just lost a lot of profits, Activision. Why did you just lose profits, you might be asking? Well, with an annualized franchise, you risk something quite significant. if your franchise is annualized and you depend on new revenue from that franchise every year and your game is delayed, you face the problem of the consumer not wanting to purchase the next game. Let me kind of explain. If Black Ops 3 would basically be in danger of being too good, almost, in a sense, because you want, in an annualized franchise at least, for the player to be burnt out of the game by the time the next one comes out. That way they'll buy that game, or at least be exhausted of that game. That's what Call of Duty's been doing, because if you haven't noticed, by the time another Call of Duty game rolls around, you're kind of bored with the Call of Duty game already, and you really are. You're kind of edgy for it because you're already sick of the old game. Well, you wouldn't be able to achieve that sort of that I guess you could say hype sensation nearly as easy if the game is delayed, because basically it's going to be a lot harder for you to get burnt out of it, and it's going to cost the developers money, because what are they going to do, cut content? Of course they can resell that as DLC, but even if they do, what does that mean? They've already probably conceived the DLC ideas. Sometimes the DLC before is already well into development. So either way, the studio loses money, it loses consumer confidence, and it risks the player not wanting to purchase the next game. Because if I'm still enticed with Call of Duty Black Ops 2, I'm not going to want to buy Black Ops 3 just yet. I'm going to want to save my money until I'm burnt out on this game. And that's kind of how I operate as a consumer. And I know a lot of other people do it like this too. There are some people who buy a new game as immediately, right when it comes out, which I've got no problem with. It's your money, of course. But they try to appeal to people kind of like me that don't want to buy a game if they're still not burnt out with the prequel. And they can't do that if the game's delayed, and that's a big problem for a Call of Duty title. It doesn't sound like it's a significant one, but rest assured, it's a very big one when it comes to monetary gains and losses, which brings me on to my next point. The reason why another reason why this beta is being released is because they desperately need to reinstate investor confidence. Now, Activision is a company that has investors. Investors are people that buy shares or bonds or pieces of a company in exchange for guaranteed profits, which are always guaranteed but not always followed through on. And if the investors are unhappy with the game or unhappy with the product, then the producer of said product typically gets sued. So let me kind of explain. Whenever you pre-order a game, the reason why this thing is one of the reasons why it's coming out as a beta is because it's a pre-order bonus. Players that pre-order the game or basically buy the game before it comes out get to play this. And that's really good to install investor confidence. Pre-orders are very good for that thing, because investors are always happy knowing that their company has already earned profits or is already close to earning said profits before they've even released the product. It's a great way to kind of predict sales for the game and instate further investor confidence. And if investor confidence is lost, however, it's another big problem for Activision, something that Activision would not be able to afford, coupled with a failed beta. So this beta means a lot for Call of Duty in general. It means a lot for Activision Publishing. It means a lot for Treyarch. It means a lot for Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer. Anyways, guys, I'm the Epic Nathan 5. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please rate, redeem necessary. Bye-bye, everyone.